Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 6:00 p.m. We'll call this meeting of your Pontiac City Council to order for the evening of May 28, 2024. Called to order at 6 p.m. Councilwoman James, would you be willing to pitch hit for invocation tonight?
Yes. Let's bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time of coming together to make decisions for our city. As we come, Father, we ask that you would look on Pastor Parker, Councilman Parker, on today, who is not feeling well. We pray that you would touch his body. We pray that you would strengthen him, that you would bless him and heal him with your healing virtue on today. Our thoughts and prayers go out to him and for him on today. We ask that you would bless the meeting, Father, that you would help us and give us wisdom to make decisions in the best interests of the residents of the city of Pontiac. These blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now join as a community to have a moment of silence for those we've recently had to say goodbye to. We'll read the names of those we've recently learned have passed away in recent days. Calvin Bell Sr., Elizabeth Bowman, Otis Bradley, Umika Burton, Alvin Hall Jr., Betty Hollis, Dr. Lawana Isaac, daughter of Dr. Isaac from the community, Sharnae Jenkins, Dot Johnson, Donald King, Marvis Mitchell, Otilia Patrizio, Brenda Vyers, and John Waltman. Please join us for a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Roll call, Deputy Clerk of Council members.
Carrington.
Present.
Goodman. James.
Here.
McGinnis.
Present.
Nicholson.
Here.
Parker. Rutherford.
Present.
You have a quorum.
All right, quorum being established, we shall proceed. Is there a motion to excuse Council members Goodman and Parker from this meeting for personal reasons?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilwoman Rutherford. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Deputy Clerk, on excusing those council members from this meeting for personal reasons.
Carrington.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are now at approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. The question before us is approving the agenda as presented. Are there any amendments or discussion? Hearing no amendments or discussion, roll call, Deputy Clerk, on approval of the agenda.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We'll proceed accordingly. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved by Carrington. Support.
It's been moved by Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman Rutherford. I'll itemize for you, verbalize the items that are in tonight's consent agenda. The regular City Council meeting minutes from May 21st. The special meeting City Council minutes from May 23rd. A resolution honoring the life and service of Reverend James Keyes. Resolution approving the honorary renaming of South Shirley Street for Reverend James Keyes. Resolution congratulating Kevin Johnson of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated on award commendation. Resolution recognizing Juneteenth in the city of Pontiac. Resolution to approve a permit application and to execute a contract with Great Lakes Fireworks LLC for a Juneteenth fireworks display at the city of Pontiac on June 15th, 2024. Resolution recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the city of Pontiac. Resolution recognizing June as Men's Health Month in the city of Pontiac. Resolution in support of House Bill 5430 for the expansion of the Michigan State Historic Preservation Tax Credits established under Public Act 343 of 2020. Yes, ma'am.
We forgot to mention that June is Black Music Month as well.
We could do that resolution next month,
Okay, thank you.
or excuse me, next week, but we don't have it in tonight's consent
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
Thank you for flagging that. All right, so that's the consent agenda we have before us. Roll call, Deputy Clerk, on the adoption of tonight's consent agenda.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes,
Carrington.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda and those items have been adopted. We're now at recognition of elected officials. Is there a request for any elected officials currently serving in our community to give an update on their positions? Hearing none, we are now at agenda address, an opportunity to speak on items on the agenda before they are considered. Pro Tem, any requests tonight?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Ms. Billy Swazer?
Public comment?
Ms. Valerie, is it Benjamin? Dr. Deirdre Waterman?
Good evening. I'm speaking to 1, 2, 8, 9, and 15. The first ones, you have a recognition honoring Reverend James Keys, who we talked about last week. I also want to say on 15, you have the Macedonia Health Fair on June 8th, just to let people know that we are going to have a voter registration table there, and people who are not registered to vote can have the opportunity to vote, to register to vote, as well as people who want to file for the permanent absentee voter application. So this is just a service, and they're going to be doing it now on a number of sites throughout Pontiac to give people the chance to register to vote. In addition to that, numbers 8 and 9 concerned, we're dealing with recreational marijuana again, medical marijuana. And one of the things, this is coming back into interest now of the public, is that there's a 60-day moratorium for institution now of the moratorium of the marijuana ordinances with applications and everything that can invades. But some things have not been completed yet from what your discussions had been months and months ago. And one of those was the marijuana ordinance for community benefits. It's very important that gets done before these applications start being considered again, because of the fact that the lawsuits that are still pending against the city were partially because the Judge Yasmin Poles, who had 2 of the Rubicon cases, said one of the reasons the city was in trouble because of the arbitrary and capricious nature of some of the scoring. So it's important to get that community benefits ordinance, and some of the groups who were not included and being considered as community groups should be included in that community
does
benefits
conclude your
ordinance. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. Ms. Darlene Clark, what items? Okay.
Go ahead. First, I'd like to say thank you for the people out there who's listening, and the council as well as the administration for honoring Reverend Keys. Keys is actually my uncle. He's a great, great family member of mine that my grandfather adopted, actually, and he's been the brother to all my aunties. Their mothers had 9 girls, so a welcoming boy coming into the crowd was like, wow. So thank you for that. But I do have a question, and this has nothing to do with Reverend Keys. Could you let the people who's listening, do you guys have a cap on how many streets that you can name after people? Or does each district have like a certain limit? Because we do notice that the city of Pontiac do notice that constantly you guys are renaming streets. And the old saying, if it's not broke, why fix it? Naming streets doesn't constitute recognition of the person that's dead, because the person should have had the flowers while they was alive. So I don't understand the objective to renaming streets. Secondly, and there's so many other great people who can be named, have a street name after that came long before the ones that's here. But secondly, I want to know too, for number 4, you're getting ready to have trucks for number 4 to vote on. Are these, can you explain to the resident, are these going to be lease vehicles? Because so far you have a little over $690,000 in the budget. And if you're leasing vehicles, that's a lot of leasing. So please explain to the public your intentions on what are you going to do with these vehicles that you're getting ready to approve.
Thank you. Ms. Gloria Miller. President McGinnis, that concludes agenda address.
Thank you, Pro Tem Carrington. I want to confirm with the planning manager, the clerk's office expressed that you'd like to reverse the order in which these two ordinance amendments are being considered. Is that a true story?
That is correct. The flow would work a little better with adult use first because there's more substance there than the medical, but we're at council's pleasure if you'd like to keep the agenda as well.
How's your PowerPoint set up?
Right now, IT has set up the medical first, so.
All right, then I'm not going to consider a change. You can just roll with it.
Understood.
All right. So we're at number 1. Is there a motion for adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Pontiac zoning ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilwoman James. This Pontiac zoning ordinance to amend requirements for medical marijuana facilities, amending Section 2.204, Section 2.545 through 2.549, Sections 2.559, and Section 3.1. I don't want to get that wrong, but it's right now reads as 1212, and I'll correct that. At least what the agenda states regarding medical marijuana and caregivers. This is the second reading. It's been before council for a first reading already. Mayor and administration staff, you have the floor.
Thank you, President McGinnis. So this is obviously a continuation of what we began discussing last week. It is a collection of updates and clarifications to the city's medical marijuana ordinance, including some guidelines around caregivers. And with that, I'll turn it over to our planning manager, Mark Yandrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So just a brief presentation, very similar to last week. I am going to try to flow through it a little quicker. But this is a city-initiated text amendment to the medical marijuana ordinance of the zoning ordinance of the city. So tonight is the second reading. We discussed this as City Council under first reading resolution last week, and the Planning Commission public hearing was held at the beginning of the month. So as a background, the City Council adopted municipal code and zoning code regulations in 2023 to allow and regulate adult use marijuana in the city. The medical marijuana zoning ordinance became effective in 2019. And we have split previous amendments that were before City Council earlier this year into two ordinances, one for adult use and one for medical. So right now we are discussing medical. These ordinances align, or the goal is to align, and there are no proposals to modify the City of Pontiac municipal ordinance that was part of the voter-approved referendum on February 27th of 2024. A quick summary, there are three changes that are proposed for the medical marijuana ordinance. Number one, prohibition of green signage and facade for medical marijuana businesses. This is also before you tonight for adult use. It aligns with banning imagery and words, and the green is an extension of signage, and the prohibition of the color protects the healthiness and aesthetics of our commercial corridors in the city. Number two, we have an ordinance in place that restricts caregivers to certain industrial zone properties in the city. This would amend it to limit it to 2,000 square feet per property. And this would, as I mentioned last week, really align that the square footage allowed for a caregiver would be in alignment with what the state allows, which is up to 72 plants. There are 4 bullets under number 3, just to align the language with the adult use ordinance. Number 1 is to eliminate the ability for provisioning centers in the C1 and C4 zoning districts. This was previously allowed in medical, and there have been some rezonings that have taken place, but currently we do not have any conditional licenses from the clerk's office for medical in these 2 zoning districts. We felt that it was better to have these provisioning centers, which are sort of like retail centers, to have them more in downtown in C2 and in C3, which is the corridor commercial, where it's a little more intense. C1 can be closer to residential, so this would provide a little bit of a buffer to the neighborhoods. Number 2, we eliminated the ability for secure transporters and safety compliance facilities to operate in the downtown overlay district. As I mentioned, these things, car sales are prohibited downtown, and having a big storage of secure transporters can give the appearance of car storage, and we want to really avoid that in the downtown and focus on activated businesses that invite customers. Number 3, clarified that all marijuana facilities must abide by all applicable ordinances and state and federal law, including but not limited to the building and fire codes. This is really a cleanup and really just gives us protection if there are some known or unknown hazards with the place that our building and fire officials would be able to go in and regulate under their codes. And lastly, we align the medical marijuana with the adult use marijuana ordinance, eliminating window signs within the ordinance, which is already adopted within the adult use ordinance. And we thought that that was appropriate just to limit the amount of advertising for this type of business. So with that, that is my presentation. As a reminder, Planning Commission at that public hearing recommended approval 5-0 of the zoning text amendments without conditions. So.
Thank you, and this was obviously presented and discussed at a previous city council meeting as well, so we don't need to rehash as much. But City Attorney, can you confirm for me the numerology, the numbering of the Article 3, Chapter 11 sections? I see in the, on page 12 as it was, revoke Article 3, Chapter 11, Section 3.1112, subsection N. Is that numbering correct? And then the next one is 3.112, subsection N?
That is exactly correct. There is a 1 missing in this red line version. It is correct in the clean version, which will be published.
Okay. So what is the correct numbers?
3.1112.
Okay. Just for the sake of continuity with what's before us, I'll consider an amendment from a council member.
Moved by Carrington.
Just to make it consistent, the section in question is 3.1112, subsection N, for Article 3, Chapter 11, in those last 2 items showing the changes. So that way it's consistent throughout the document. That was moved by Pro Tem Carrington and seconded by Councilman Nicholson. Any further discussion on that mainly procedural cleanup? Yes, ma'am.
I have one on the caregivers. Do we have any caregivers that are currently registered who would not meet these new requirements?
Not to my knowledge. We do have several caregivers in the city, but we believe that it was appropriate. Now, anyone that is approved is grandfathered with the square footage, but this would be for new applications.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Any discussion on the amendment before us of aligning the numbers for the section 3.1112, subsection N? Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Deputy Clerk, on that amendment, tweaking to make sure the numbers align.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Rutherford, Carrington,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That amendment carries. We're back to the main motion.
Mr. President, I have a matter of personal concern. Ms. Clark has got a flashlight shining in my eyes. I have no problem with her filming me throughout the entire meeting, but the flashlight, I'm requesting to be turned off.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that point of personal privilege. Any further discussion on the motion before us? We are looking at adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Pontiac zoning ordinance to amend requirements for medical marijuana facilities. Roll call, Deputy Clerk.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The ordinance amendment is adopted. We're at number 2 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt that second reading?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there support? Okay. It's been moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilwoman James. This is number 2 on tonight's agenda, adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Pontiac zoning ordinance to amend requirements for adult-use marijuana retail establishments in designated overlay districts and to ensure consistency between the adult-use marijuana business license ordinance and the adult-use marijuana zoning ordinance. It amends Section 2.204, Section 2.551 through Section 2.558, Section 3.1207, Section 3.1208, Section 3.1210, and Section 3.1211 regarding adult-use marijuana. That is before us. Mayor.
Yeah, take it away, Manager Andrew.
All right. Thank you very much. So this is a zoning text amendment for adult use marijuana from the zoning ordinance, and again, it is city initiated. Tonight is the second reading. This is the same schedule as medical. We had first last week, and the public hearing was on May 1st. I mentioned many of the things that are up here. There are no proposals to modify the City of Pontiac municipal ordinance that was part of the voter-approved referendum on February 27th, 2024. This is one half of what was split previously this year regarding adult-use marijuana. So number 1 is the same prohibition of green of signage and facade of adult-use marijuana businesses, just to align, again, with the imagery and words. And really, the prohibition protects the healthiness and aesthetics of our corridors. And then I have a few slides about the cleanup language. As I mentioned last week, I did go through the striking and unnecessary summary paragraph. We are aligning the zoning code for growers, facilities, and processors that in the Cesar Chavez Walden District must be located in M1, M2, or IPD-based zoning district with special exception approval. Now, the third one is we are allowing unlimited facilities. I will discuss this in a few slides. It was requested by Councilwoman James last week, but I will go into that. Number 4 there is allowing secure transporters in the following zoning districts to comply with the medical ordinance. That would be C3, M1, M2, and IP1. So that those would align the zoning districts that those are allowed in. For retailers and social equity retailers, these amendments add the base zoning district be in the C2, C3, M1, and M2 base zoning districts, only in one of the 4 overlay districts. This aligns with the medical ordinance. So along with being in one of the overlay districts, it needs to have one of those 4 zoning districts as a base zoning district. So it just can't go anywhere in an overlay district. Part 2 just incorrectly summarizes the number of retail and social equity retailers from the 2023 approval. This is appropriate everywhere else in the ordinance. We just wanted to correct the number there for 7 total, just to align that. This middle one is it erroneously references residential dwelling units for distance buffers. While the medical marijuana ordinance had buffer distances to medical marijuana facilities, there are no such restrictions for adult use marijuana establishments, so the reference is unnecessary. Lastly, Class A microbusinesses have specific design standards. We're adding specific design standards to match what is already in the ordinance for retailers and social equity retailers. So there are specific design standards that you don't have in other overlay districts, but is specific to Woodward. Because microbusinesses function and look a lot like retailers and social equity retailers, we are requesting that these design standards also apply to microbusinesses. So I did want to discuss the the growers and processors for adult use. This is generally the east or the Walden area, and this map is the zoning map. So the different colors represent different districts. This shading, this blue shading, identifies where in the district is the the adult use marijuana overlay district. Now, the different colors, we've discussed that they would only be allowed in base zoning districts, and that would be the industrial-based zoning districts, as you see with the gray here. So just to simplify this map, there's a lot of colors, there are a lot of unknowns. This map really identifies where in the where in the Walden overlay district specifically that a grower and processor can go. outside of this, they would not be able to go anywhere else within the overlay district. Now, why is this being requested? Well, originally, I believe from City Council in the business license, there was no restriction on growers and processors. There didn't seem to be a lot of demand. The city didn't want to set up a scoring system necessarily for them. So in our current ordinances, one does not exist. So, but in the zoning ordinance, we really were trying to restrict to 3 per these 2 overlay districts, Cesar Chavez and Walton. But there's a little bit of a mismatch just in case, you get 4, for example, 4 applications for a specific overlay district. So these are the locations that a grower and processor could go in the Walton overlay district. Really aligns with the medical marijuana ordinance, but also aligns with the business license of allowing unlimited and really taking pressure off the city to going through a scoring system for this type of use. So I hope that clarifies it, but if there's any questions on that, I'll be happy to entertain that. So the recommendation from Planning Commission at public hearing was 5-0. As presented in the staff report with 1 condition, and it was just to eliminate C2 as a permitted district for the safety, compliance, and secure transporters. And this condition has been updated and reflected in the proposed ordinance before City Council. So thank you for the presentation. I'll be happy to entertain any questions council may have.
Thank you. This was previously read for a first time and reviewed and discussed. Is there any final deliberation or concerns? Councilwoman James.
Yeah, I still have a concern about unlimited grower and processor. Currently, how many growers and processors are on the Walton Overlay District?
I believe that there is 1 or 2, but I would have to defer to the clerk's office on that.
Yeah, I think I would represent the voice of my community to say that they do not want to see an unlimited number of those facilities in that district. Unlimited to me is unacceptable. 2 or 3, the original plan was 5 of these businesses, the retail businesses, per overlay district. And now we're saying that the growers and the processors are going to have unlimited. And I think that the potential there is to have, a residential district overrun with these kinds of businesses, which I can tell you it will not be well received by District 4. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to create a situation where we need to score the businesses. I understand the problems with that, but to just say that we're going to have an unlimited and anybody can come up and say, okay, I want to have a grower business here, and we don't have any guideline that limits that number of businesses, I just think we're asking for trouble, and we're asking, we're doing something that certainly is not going to be in the best interest of the residents.
Mayor Gremmel.
Yeah, and in that regard, Manager Yandrick, I'm hoping you can kind of walk through, and I know you touched on this, but if you can walk through a little bit what's prompting this, and I know that part of it is to align it with the medical marijuana ordinance. So I believe, but I'm looking for some guidance from you. I believe that under the medical marijuana ordinance, growers and processors were unlimited. And this reflects that under the adult use ordinance. But how does the zoning under the adult use, the proposed zoning of growers and processors under the adult use ordinance compare to that under the medical ordinance? Obviously, even though the number is not formally capped at a number, it's effectively capped by restricting it to certain zoning areas. So I think one important question is, how does the strictness of the proposed zoning for growers and processors under the adult use ordinance compare to that under the medical ordinance?
Thank you. So as of today in the medical ordinance, it's unlimited. As of today in the adult use ordinance, it is 3 per overlay district for these 2 overlay districts. if that helps answer the question.
Well, I'm really wondering, I know that the proposal is to make it unlimited under the adult use ordinance so that it aligns with the medical ordinance. But in addition to the number, there are zoning restrictions, right? In terms of it has to be in M1 or M2 or.
Yep.
So how does that compare under the two ordinances?
So the base zoning district would match up. So the same restrictions. So this red area right here at Walden, as southwest corner of Walden and Baldwin, this area off of Highwood, south of Collier, and these two areas just off of Walden, kind of just north of the GM area. Those are the only places that, because of the base zoning district, that we're really restricting where growers and processors can go. Under the current adult use ordinance, it could go anywhere that's commercially zoned in this overlay district here. So really what we're saying is we're making it unlimited, but we're really restricting it to the industrial areas and trying to take it away from both the commercial areas and the residential areas. And there are certain zoning restrictions between an industrial area and a residential area. So, I mean, that needs to be considered for this. But really, we wanted Walden not to have a lot of growers and processors in these commercial districts because there's a lot of different types of businesses that are there and potentially could go there. And so really restricting it to the industrial zones we thought was most appropriate.
So really the proposal does two things. It allows for any number of them, but it more strictly restricts them to just industrial areas and actually will help ensure that none of them end up adjacent to residential areas. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And while there are a few industrial properties adjacent to residential, it's really limited with, as you can see, the difference between these bright reddish orange areas and then the yellow areas. When you're on Walden here, you have a lot of properties that are adjacent to these commercial businesses, zone C1 and C3 on Walden. So this is adjacent to the railroad right here, and there's a lot of industrial around here that, so it'd be more suited in these industrial zoned areas and not in a commercial or residential zoned area.
Thank you for your responses. Councilwoman James, does that address your concerns?
It gives some insight into it, yeah.
So right now, as it stands today, there's an unlimited number of growers and processors of medical marijuana in the city of Pontiac.
Correct.
Are they limited to what zoning areas?
These two same overlay districts, Cesar Chavez and the Walden overlay districts.
So right now for medical, there's unlimited growers and processors for any appropriately zoned property in the Walton overlay and the Cesar Chavez overlay district.
That is correct.
So there could be, although we might not have seen too much of it yet, but there could be no cap, no limit on the number of growers and processors if we were not to take this action or if it were not to be adopted. Because this is we're looking at adult use. If this didn't pass, what's the current lay of the land for growers and processors in these two districts?
Okay, so with the proposal tonight, say it goes forward, but maybe the number stays the same for the instead of unlimited, it would be 3. That is what it currently is. However, part of this ordinance is also restricting it to only the industrial areas. As of today, it is allowed in any commercial zone district in this corridor. And this would really restrict it to the base zoning district of M1, M2, and IP1.
So right now, Walton Boulevard, anything that is a commercial strip, so almost the whole stretch of Walton Boulevard, if not to take this action tonight, could be eligible as one of the 3 slots for growers and processors of adult use marijuana.
That is correct.
Is it a similar kind of map for the Cesar Chavez overlay district where it's most of Cesar Chavez in the overlay district, but now you are confining it to a few industrial zones?
Correct. There's a few more industrial zone properties in Cesar Chavez, but it's a very similar outlay between the different zoning districts that are on that corridor.
So with this, if this were to be enacted, it's the industrial limitation that will happen for the 2 overlay districts that have been permitted to have some growers and processors for adult use, but not the unlimited for medical marijuana.
So if everything passed as such, it would be unlimited for both adult use, because that's the request tonight, and medical is already unlimited.
So you want it to no longer say 3?
Correct, to align the two ordinances together.
Okay.
Correct.
So the industrial zoning provides that limited scope.
Yep.
The few sort of eligible slices of land in both of the overlay districts.
Correct.
And the not having a cap creates less legal exposure or vulnerability when it comes to contesting how many.
That is correct. We're trying to mitigate future risks to the city.
And so other municipalities in Michigan, that's how they did the whole marijuana kit and caboodle, right? They just went solely zoning. They said, okay, we can have marijuana facilities in city X in Michigan, but it can only be industrial and from so many feet from something, which in effect meant there could be only a handful or maybe none, or effectively none. Pontiac, because of the referendum many moons ago that started this terrible chain of events where the marijuana entities wanted to put a number in from the jump, that meant that it was sort of, the door was closed from the beginning on going the zoning route for that effect. Is that a fair interpretation, that there are basically two primary paths? There's other legally unsound paths that a city can take, but.
Yeah, that is exactly correct.
So the assessment has been that if you really constrain it to just this specific type of zoning, in addition to whatever, ordinance setbacks are required, et cetera, and business requirements, that will be a much better safeguard versus X number, but more broadly available throughout Walton and throughout Cesar Chavez.
Exactly. This is a safeguard.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilman James, you hold the power since there's only 4 of us. If you want to kill this bad boy or review it further, the better route would be for us to postpone it for a week. So
Well, then you should postpone it because I can't approve it.
Okay.
It's, the balance, even with it being in the M1 and M2 districts, the potential is for us to just end up with more of these businesses than we want. So I can't approve this.
So for further research and deliberations, is there a motion to postpone for 1 week?
I move to postpone.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Pardon me, moved by Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman James, that we postpone this item for 1 week. Hearing no discussion, roll call, Deputy Clerk.
Carrington,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Yeah, but
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. It'll be back next week. We're at number 3 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second on resolution number 3?
yes.
All right, it's been moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilwoman James. This is the resolution calling for better securing of the former Purdue School property. It's city-owned property. It's located at 25 South Sanford Street between Pike and Chandler. In the last few years, it's the city of Pontiac's property. It's vacant. It is large. And in the last 2+ years, there have been a number of public safety incidents where it's been trespassing, urban explorers, fires have been started, windows have been broken out. The resolution acknowledges that the administration's been able to do another round of securing further, but per my visit to the site this last Memorial Day weekend, there still are windows that are open to trespass, and concerningly, the site vegetation is overgrown once more, so it's blocking the sidewalks around the city property. The resolution obviously is eager to see an ultimate fix, so that way, the ownership and the adaptive reuse of the property or demolition is overdue. But in the interim, just like with the success of securing the former McCarroll School that is now city-owned, even though that will ultimately be demolished, we're pleased to see how securely and presentably that looks, and we hope that the same can be true of the Purdue School in its transition to the next use. Mayor Grimo.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you, President McGinnis, for bringing this to our attention last week. We have our acting DPW director here if folks have questions, but he has contacted the company that we use to do the boarding up of buildings. They anticipate that they will be able to fully and completely secure the building this week because, as you've observed, there are a few entranceways that are mostly windows that are not properly secured. We're also going to make sure that we're boarding up even those windows where there is glass in them, just to make sure that somebody doesn't break the glass to get in. So we're going to have that building more fully and completely secured by the end of this week. In terms of a longer-term solution, I'm happy to report that we anticipate bringing a resolution before City Council next week to vote to schedule a public hearing on a potential conveyance of that property for the purpose of developing housing as well. So that longer-term solution is also on its way.
Roger that. Any further discussion on the motion before us? So it's a key concern for the residents that live near the former Purdue School, the City Council, and the community at large. So we're going to keep pushing for solutions to that problem. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Deputy Clerk, on adoption of the resolution calling for better securing of the former Purdue School property, which is now owned by the City of Pontiac.
Carrington,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We're at number 4 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilman James. This is a resolution to approve the purchase of 6 Freightliner tandem axle cab chassis trucks and mounted equipment for the DPW salt trucks using the Rochester Hills Interlocal Agreement, solicitation number RFP-RH-20-023, and this would be utilizing American Rescue Plan Act funds. Mayor Grimo, administration, you have the floor.
Thank you. We have, as I think everyone on council knows and many members of the public know, we have a very aging fleet of plow trucks, and a number of them were down for repairs this past winter, so we really need to start replacing those plow trucks. These trucks take a lot of abuse. Most of them are well over 10 years old, and we really need to start ordering these trucks now because it can take a really long time for these trucks to come, given the supply chain challenges that we've seen in recent years. So it could take a year or even 2 years for some of these trucks to actually arrive, but the sooner we order them, the sooner they'll get here. And so we're proposing using ARPA dollars to order 6 of these trucks. And with that, I'll turn it over to our acting DPW director, Patrick Muller, to talk a little more in detail about what these trucks are and what the price tag is.
Good evening, Council. You guys have covered most of the key points. Again, they're ARPA dollars. There's 6 trucks that we're looking to replace. Out of the large dump plow style trucks, we have 10. All 10 are at least 4 or 5 years past their useful life expectancy. And like the mayor touched on, typical lead time, as we found, has been roughly 3 years. Going with the Freightliner option that we've chosen, expected delivery would be fall of 25. There's 2 different style trucks we're looking to get. They're all Freightliner, same chassis, 2 of which a little heavier drivetrain, so we could support a wing on the side of the plow, making us more efficient, getting the roads done. Total for the purchase, between purchase of the cab chassis and then upfitting them, so they have the plow, the dump, all that, total $1,618,176 that we're looking for approval.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Pro Tem Carrington?
Thank you, President McGinnis. What do you guys plan to do with the old fleet once the new fleet gets here?
With the age of most of it, we're assessing, but with the age, getting rid of, we'll take parts off of what is applicable that's worth keeping, and then I would say probably scrap the rest.
So how many how many trucks do we have right now for snow plowing?
So
that's operational.
Operational, I'll have to get a concrete number. We've been waiting on some parts for a very long time for several of them. I'll get an update as to how many are able to go into service currently.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the motion before us? Councilwoman James.
I have a question for Mayor Grimo. The costs for these, are these coming out of the 10 million that we put into the general fund, the opera 10 million that we put in the general fund, or is this coming out of the remaining balances?
This is coming out of the remaining balances.
Okay.
And, you know, as obviously we want to get that obligated this year, the full amount. And I was negligent in not answering a question posed by a member of the audience. These are purchases, not leases, to be clear about that as well.
Further discussion from council? Hearing no further discussion, roll call. Deputy Clerk on the adoption of Resolution number 4, approving the purchase of 6 Freightliner tandem axle cab chassis trucks and mounted equipment for the Department of Public Works. And this interlocal agreement solicitation number identified in the resolution and on the agenda. This will be utilizing American Rescue Plan Act funds prior to the obligation deadline. Roll call. Deputy Clerk.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
Motion carries. Resolutions adopted. We're at number 5 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to begin debate?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved by Councilman Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilwoman James. This is a resolution to enter into a contract agreement with DLZ for asset collection within the road network to update the city's TAMP. Mayor Grimo.
Yeah, thank you. We have not updated the city's transportation asset management plan in many, many years. And so this is really overdue, and part of making sure that we're engaging in proper asset management, making sure that we have a fully developed asset management plan is actually knowing what assets are out there. And the city does not have and never has had a fully developed digital accounting or computer database of where street signs are, where street lights are, things of that nature. And so this is a proposed contract with DLZ to have a vehicle or vehicles go around the city and using LiDAR map out the locations of all of these public assets, then make sure that all of that data is built into a database so that we actually know where city assets are and have an assessment of their condition. So this is both to locate where street signs are and the nature of those street signs, where street lights are, and the nature and condition of those, and make sure that we build that into a database so that we can more effectively, more promptly, more timely go about updating, correcting, improving, fixing, and replacing city assets on our public roadways. And with that, I'll turn it over to our acting DPW director, Patrick Miller. He's joined by Zach Hoppola of DLZ, who can answer questions as well.
So Public Act 325 requires us to have, as Mayor mentioned, the Transportation Asset Management Plan that we have to submit to the Transportation Asset Management Committee. And with the submittal of our plan, they determined it was inadequate and they're requiring the additional data collection. So this, again, to be using LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging, to digitally map. So similar to how Google Maps would send a vehicle out to survey, done in a similar way, where they go out and digitally map our city and gather all of those assets to meet the requirement, but also, as Mayor's touching on, so that we can better service the community. So we have an understanding of what all of our assets are, from guardrails, traffic signals, traffic signs, culverts, the roads themselves. All that information gets compiled into our GIS so that we can access it and better manage the city's assets.
Thank you. Deliberations from council members. Councilwoman James, followed by Pro Tem.
Yeah, what is the time frame for the scope of work that you guys are going to be doing? Is it a year, 2 years?
Hi, Councilwoman James. So to answer your question, we're looking to get things started as soon as possible. So the actual LiDAR would actually be completed in the next few months, and then it shouldn't take until probably winter to almost spring to actually extract all that data and input it into GIS. So we're probably looking between a 6 to 9 month time frame to get everything, to actually capture all the data and then input that into the GIS system, and then include all that information into your traffic asset management plan. So to include it into the asset management plan, we're probably looking at 9 to 12 months for total completion of everything.
Okay. Also, on this first page here, it doesn't have a number, but it says the acquired data will be processed and spatially referenced data set will be made available for a period of 3 years to extract attributes. What does that mean?
As far as, so DLZ has spoken with Survey Solutions, Inc. to actually do the LiDAR for us, and then we would be extracting that information. So that is just Surveying Solutions agreement that they would make that information available for 3 years. So it would provide us that time frame to get in there and extract that data, put it into the city's GIS system for use however long we want to. But that's just Surveying Solutions stipulations of how long they'll basically house that data, right? They've only got so much storage space, so they just have to keep that information in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Councilwoman James asked one of my questions, but just a follow-up question. How long does this asset management plan last? It's good for how long?
So there's not a good stipulation on that right now from the state of Michigan. Basically, from what we submitted, they deemed it inadequate. And when I say we, I mean the city of Pontiac. And so we are required to add all of these data information into it. There's not necessarily a time frame that's been set out as far as how long that asset management plan will last. Typically, it's about 5 years that you need to make updates. But again, they're always making kind of addendums to that and updates to it. So this is basically just a requirement to get these things in so we still receive our Act 51 funds.
Okay. And what were some of the things they said was inadequate about what you guys submitted? And I know I'm not surprised that it came back based on what's historically.
Well, so as you guys may be aware, like everyone's kind of familiar with PACER ratings on our roads. We've got linear footage on our sidewalks, some linear footage on curbs. We've got storm sewer, we've got sanitary, we've got water. All of that can be included in that. But there wasn't any data. There was not an inventory, and there were not assessments on things such as your guardrails, your signs, culverts, things of that nature. None of that was submitted in that asset management plan submitted years ago. So that's just bringing everything back into compliance.
All right, thank you.
My two questions don't need to be answered tonight, but to the administration, taking it a step further, I want to know what's the time frame for installation or replacement or repair of guardrails. So how does this fit into the genesis of the needs of our neighborhoods, of our thoroughfares? I know of a number of sites in District 7 that are in need of that work. And so I imagine this has hamstrung the city over the years from even beginning to take a bite out of those solutions. You don't have to have an answer tonight just for the sake of time, but that's something I'm looking for. If you've got a shorthand answer, I welcome it. But then the second, this is, I'll let you answer it first. You seemed eager, and then I'll keep going.
Well, this is something that we've discussed quite a bit. In fact, that's really what prompted this. Was we were talking about, hey, we've got a lot of missing signs out there. We've got a lot of damaged guardrails out there. We have a lot of assets in our public roadways or next to our public roadways that need updates and improvements. And DLZ rightly said, well, to really do this the right way and the most efficient way, you need to first know what you've got comprehensively, and then you can start comprehensively improving, fixing, and replacing what you've got. And so that's really what prompted this. And so as soon as this is all uploaded into our database, which we anticipate being ballpark kind of the springtime of next year, meaning spring of 2025, then we'll be ready to go full throttle in terms of having signs that are missing replaced, having guardrails replaced, having signs that are broken fixed, and that sort of thing. So we anticipate this really leading right into the actual work of fixing up and replacing signs. We may be able to start on that work before all of the data has been mined. As we mine data, especially if we're doing that geographically around the city, we can probably start on those geographies where we have already mined the data before we finished mining all of the data. But we need to get this ball rolling, and then as we get the data mined, we can then start working on actually improving and replacing street signs and guardrails and other infrastructure in those areas.
Thank you. My next question is related to the source of funds. It looks like that it'll be appropriated from Act 51 funds, but would it also be utilizing American Rescue Plan resources? Yay, nay, or to be determined?
Well, it would actually be my recommendation to use ARPA dollars. And so if the resolution does not reflect that and says that it's using Act 51 dollars, I would certainly welcome an amendment to clarify that it would use ARPA dollars.
It's more in the narrative that speaks that it's in the GL number, American Rescue Plan. The GL is kind of what's indicating it to me, but Councilman Nicholson, you were seeing something?
No, I agree. It's in the narrative, and it does state American Rescue Plan within the description, so I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Councilman Nicholson, do you want to make an amendment that adds a final, be it further resolved that the City Council authorizes the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds for this expense to the extent that it would be eligible?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Nicholson to add that final further resolved. It has been seconded by Councilman James. Any further discussion on that? Again, it's authorizing, the City Council authorizing the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds to cover this expense to the extent that it is eligible through the American Rescue Plan Act. Hearing no further discussion, we're voting on that amendment, just adding that resolution language. Deputy Clerk, roll call on that amendment vote.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. This is for the mayor. I know you guys been taking a lot of information from the council as well as residents about streets that don't have street names. And so are you saying you're going to wait eight months to get those streets?
I'm not.
Those street signs
no.
up?
That is not what I meant to suggest. As soon as the new DPW director starts work, this is going to be one of the first orders of business we discuss with him, is making sure that we're getting what we know already fixed. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a lot out there that we don't know about, where we probably have things broken or missing that council hasn't reported, but we're not going to wait on all that until this is done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So to confirm, this asset management plan of sufficient quality is required by the state of Michigan for future funding for roads and other transportation improvements. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, sir.
And does that impact current eligibility, or per the narrative, is that more so coming in October of next year?
That could be coming next year if things were not to be improved.
Okay, so this is trying to proactively get it fixed before it's right at the crisis point.
Correct.
All right. My final question, Mayor and Administration, can you reconcile this with what the City Council has already approved for DLZ for essentially assessing the road conditions in the city of Pontiac that sort of was pursued last fall? There was a vote by City Council last fall. It dealt with something a little broader. Does this relate to it? Does this data feed into that broader task, or are they more running on parallel but different paths?
I would say they're running more on parallel but different paths. I think what we discussed in the fall was more about the condition of the road surface, of the pavement, if you will. But this is really about the ancillary infrastructure, the sign, like we discussed, the signage, the guardrails, the light poles, things of that nature, as opposed to the actual condition of the road itself.
And would that be true also for phantom leaning towers of rust that are left in the right-of-way where there once was a sign 20 or 30 years ago, and there's a stub or just a pole with no, would it be sort of tracking the reverse, things that we don't want to be an asset or no longer an asset?
So that's the nice thing about LiDAR is we'll be going down all of the streets and picking up everything. It'll actually be manned, and then it'll geotag everything. So, I mean, you could redo all of the sidewalk, all of the road, all of the curb. So we obviously know what needs to be put into the traffic asset management plan. But again, that data will be available for 3 years. So if there's other things we want to extract, if we are interested in, I know we're pursuing a tree survey and other things like that. If there's other information that we want to extract from the public road right-of-way, we'll have access to do so.
Mayor Grimo.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, and I've specifically talked with Shannon Filarecki of DLZ about that, which is we have a number of signs out there that no longer should be there. I mean, we've got, a sign, for example, by Updike and M59 saying Silverdome parking. Obviously, that's obsolete at this point. So there are a number of signs and then also random polls and things. LiDAR will pick up all of that, and we can mine all of that data to come up with a database, not just of where we need signs, but also where we need to remove signs or remove random polls.
Thank you. Final discussion on the motion before us? All right, speakers list exhausted. This is number 5 on the agenda. It's the resolution to enter into a contract agreement with DLZ for asset collection within the road network to update the city's Transportation Asset Management Plan, or TAMP, and this would be utilizing American Rescue Plan Act funds to the extent that it is eligible. Roll call on adoption. Deputy Clerk.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We are at number 6. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to begin debate?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilwoman James. This is the resolution to enter into a contract agreement with DLZ to perform a cost proposal to the City of Pontiac for park facilities condition assessments. Mayor and Administration, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Last week, as you know, Council approved a contract with DLZ to do both concept design work in our major community parks, other than Galloway Lake Park, which already has a concept design in it, and then also to do construction design, to develop actual construction documents in all of our community parks, including Galloway Lake Park. That's really about, hey, where do we want things located? What do we want the basketball court to look like? What do we want the tennis court to look like? Those sorts of questions. And then also, there may be some landscaping elements to that as well. Tonight, what we're proposing is an assessment on the bathrooms in all of our community parks. All of our community parks, except for Crystal Lake Park, have a restroom facility in them. Most of those are in very bad shape, but we want to know just how bad a shape they're in. Are there elements of these bathrooms that can and should be saved? Should they all be demolished and built brand new? So it's really to get a sense of, hey, what condition are the bathrooms in, and do we need to build all of them new, or can we keep some of them or some elements of them? And with that, I'll turn it over to our Parks Director, Parks and Recreation Director, I should say, Torrance Price.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everybody. Like the Mayor was saying, this contract is for DLZ to conduct a facility condition assessment of 5 city parks consisting of Aaron Perry, Baudette, J.C., Murphy, and Oakland to assess high-level overview of the condition of existing architecture, mechanical, and electrical systems, ADA compliance, evaluate options for updating the facility so that it is functional, and estimated cost of construction for recommended improvements. Now, out of those parks, there were some questions concerning J.C. Park that we do have some answers for tonight. One of the questions that was sent to me was, is J.C. Park owned by the city of Pontiac? Pontiac owns the ball field that has the stadium seating press box. The other ball field, directly behind Dollar General, is owned by Jim Bostic. Currently, his ball field is being used to house equipment for the Bostic Trucking Company. This is because our DPW is currently using the Bostic facility as their main building of operations. In February, March 2023, our park director, Alex, spoke with Mr. Bostic about purchasing the 3 acres that his ball field encumbers, and he was willing to consider that option. When DPW made the agreement to use that space, he notified us that he would not consider selling that ball field land until DPW moves out of that facility and can move the equipment back to the parking lot off the ball field. There was questions about as we made any payments towards that. As of right now, we're not aware of any payments. Another question was about concession stand. The red building that is located there has only been used as a storage unit. And so therefore, there's never been any concessions, anything used for that. Another question was about the bathroom there. The bathroom has been welded shut the entire time. And the last question was about any play equipment. So prior to new staff coming as of January 2023, not know of any of playground equipment that was there upon them starting. So if any playground equipment was removed, might have been removed before January of 2023.
A follow-up question, though. So J.C. Park, who built the structure and who owns the structure? Is it your understanding and your assessment that since the city, it's a city park, a municipal park, that the structure, regardless of any history or speculation, that is city full, unencumbered, no liens, no legal claims, that's city of Pontiac property? And can you give us a sense of how deep that dive was? Do we still need to have city attorneys do any further cross-referencing? Because Councilwoman James, that's part of the line of the questioning, right? That there's over the years, there's been some vague indication that there was grassroots or community organizations that raised the funds that might have been utilizing or improving city facilities, which is great, but we want to know what the current status and the legal ownership of, because that impacts whether or not we think it's prudent to have JC in the scope. Because if it's not a city facility, if it's some weird island oasis that sits in a city park, but it's got some legal, or financial ties in it that complicate it, we don't want to invest Pontiac taxpayer dollars into that if it's sort of a dead end, if that makes sense.
Right. So my answer to that is that's just based off the information of research that's been done since new staff has been here. I would recommend doing a deeper dive into that to make sure that it's completely 100% accurate, because I've been at the park sometimes and some information has come up that happened way back in 1986 that nobody really knew about. So to be perfectly absolute in that, I do recommend even doing a more deeper dive to make sure.
Mayor Graham, followed by Councilman James.
Yeah, I want to first just say thanks to Councilwoman James for the inquiry. And I think it's simple enough for us to do a title search to just make sure there's nothing recorded against the property that we believe is owned by the city. So we can do a search for liens, and we'll work with the city attorney to do that. That's pretty straightforward. But if there are some other concerns or rumors or conjecture about what might be there in terms of written agreements or something, the more information that we can learn about what the concern might be, the more we can do a deeper dive in city records as well. Now that they've been, or the vast majority of them at least, have been digitized, we can do a search through city documents as well to see if there's some agreement that we may not know about. So the more information, the better, but we'll definitely do a title search just to look for anything that may be recorded against the property out there.
Thank you. Councilwoman James.
Yeah, I would strongly recommend, with respect to JC, that we do a thorough investigation now that we have a legal department, and I know that she is extremely busy, but JC is really an issue that needs to be addressed. There have been a number of inappropriate agreements under the table that have been made out there over the last, I would say, 3 administrations, possibly 4. And I don't think anyone really understands what's going on over there. I don't understand how the city allowed an outside entity to build a baseball diamond on city property. I don't understand that. And, but yet we did not, the city of Pontiac did not build Diamond Baseball Stadium. It was built by that baseball club that operates out of Waterford. And so I'm not sure what is going on. The building that you're calling a storage unit at one time was a building that they sold, because I have been there and seen them with product in there that they were selling at the various games that they would have. Concession stand. And so we have just had things going on at J.C. Park that wasn't going on anywhere else. And today, the activities in that park are problematic for the residents who live in that area. I get complaints about the late night activities out there. They're very disrespectful to the residents who live in that area. And so we definitely need to do a full disclosure of not just title, but also we need to look at any kind of legal documents that have been signed, because there have been some quit claim deeds that have been signed, and we need to understand what is the city's relationship to this company that built if it's on our property and we're saying it's ours, but I'm wondering, what agreements did we have in place? You had to have had something in place to allow them to build it. So I think, I think we really do need to do, even if our own council can't do it, we need to hire counsel to get in there and try to figure out what is going on and what does the city of Pontiac, what is our relationship with that park?
So
we know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we know we own the land, but we've got buildings on that land that we did not build. And the question in my mind is, if we didn't build them, what relationship, what agreement did we have with the people who did build them? So I don't know that necessarily has to impact the vote tonight. I mean, we still want to see the bathrooms evaluated, but for JC, it's a problem, because I don't even know if that bathroom that's in the building that you identified if that building actually belongs to us, because nobody in Pontiac uses it. That's used privately. I don't know of any Pontiac team that uses JC Park. PAL has never used it. Pontiac United attempted to use it, and they were redirected to Bodette Park. I don't know of any Pontiac community group that's currently using that park. We really need to do a deep dive to understand what's going on out there.
We've had requests to use that park. We've gotten phone calls and requests to use it. But yeah, I agree. We need to find out.
For the sake of time tonight and the balance of power, so to speak, of the remaining council members, I think it's wise that we postpone for 1 week, and the shrewd strategy may be to see if DLZ is willing to carve out JC, or sort of take that up in another matter, or if that JC clarity can be acquired. JC clarity can be acquired. And we need further documentation in our packets regardless. So I think it would be appropriate, for no disrespect, we obviously, it's a priority, and we know these are headaches that long predate you, so it's just part no shade or shame.
Okay,
I'll make a motion.
To be able for me to have a vote, I need to see a contract and a scope of service. There's actually an overwhelming amount of information regarding DLZ that we get every single time. It took me about 20 minutes to get through all of that to not find any information regarding this contract or the proposal. So that needs to be in our packet next time, well in advance of the meeting. But I'd like to make
So it might have just been, because there were two large DLZ proposals, there might have been some blending there that needs to.
So I'll make a motion to postpone for 1 week.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington, to postpone this resolution for 1 week. Hearing no further discussion, roll call. Deputy Clerk on postponement.
Carrington,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. It'll be back next week. We are now at public comment, and it is 7:14 p.m. Are there any requests?
Dr. Deidre Waterman. Then Antonio Paramo is on deck.
I don't want to use all my time to talk about some of the questions that came up that I have information about, but people do call me and say they appreciate when I have information about things that there seems to be a quandary about. But if I can go through it very quickly, J.C. Park that you just discussed. J.C. Park, what happened with that was that the emergency manager gave a lease to this club to handle J.C. Park, but they were supposed to do some improvements as part of that lease. They reneged on that. The lease terminated. And so our city attorneys were in the process of reclaiming that and going through the process. But then changed administrations and new city attorneys, and I think the ball got dropped, so that's where it was left. But just to let you know what the history of that was a little bit. And I told you to talk about the asset management system. We have had asset management systems. In fact, the previous council had me purchase one for DPW. But, and then we actually did training. Asset management, in order to be used properly, requires training of your DPW staff. But as you know now, we haven't had a DPW director for quite some time, and staff has not been trained on the old equipment, and equipment changes, and it gets new devices. So maybe it's good that you're getting a new one. But if we don't do the training and the upkeep and have some continuity of staff, then we'll just be buying the same tools every 5 or 6 years. But that's the history on that. I did hear you say, and what I do want to talk about is Councilman James, you did ask about the money that's coming out of ARP, and I think you understood that the first $10 million that came out of the ARP that the mayor took out and put in the budget, you thought it was going to be used for some of the things that you talked about. That's why you asked, are these trucks, the trucks that they're buying today, going to be taken out of that $10 million or new money? So he told you, no, it's new ARP money, which means that the budget that you had passed back in November is constantly changing. All right? They're constantly changing it as they're adding more things to take out of the current ARP money that's left. Now, one of the things that the council has done is always, for the last several months, has been asking the mayor, when are you going to get this done? When are you going to get that done? And he complains about this and that and whines about not doing this or that. But that's his job. Administration, it's your job to get the job done. And it's strictly important because ARP money, they now realize there's these deadlines coming up. And so now they're in a rush to get these things done so they won't have to give back the money. So that's important. But as you're adding other things to take out of the ARP money, one of the things you're short on is the money for homeowner repair. So few people have been able to get it. You know there's a demand for it. You should open that up, council, okay? So people don't look back and say, well, no, where's the money I was supposed to get out of the ARP money? Also for small business. That program is kind of a mess right now.
That does conclude your time.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. Antonio, is it Paramo?
First time, guys. I don't know how this works. Is this on?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
on, yes, sir.
How you guys doing tonight? My name is Antonio Paramo. I'm the guy who does the Set July on Fire event, fireworks show after the Juneteenth. I'm just here to address our city leaders and also the citizens. I made a lot of safety changes from last year. I just want to clarify that the boards that I did have that everybody's seen there was fire, I make those boards for that reason, so that way I can contain it in one area, so that way I can fire on, on the opposite side. I didn't really fully get to clarify that with the fire marshal and the deputy mayor, but I'm here to let all my city leaders know and also the people that I have made the safety changes completely. I completely went from zero, like we had the show done, and then we got contact with the mayor, the deputy mayor, told us we had to change a lot. So what I did is I went out, I spent a lot more money. I did the changes. I just wanted to show you guys that so that way you guys knew. I haven't been able to contact the deputy mayor because he's pretty busy right now, which is understandable. But I did bring an update of the clearance and everything for the show. I would like to show you guys, but I don't have a copy machine at home. So, but if I could get a copy of this, I would like you guys to see it. I do apologize. I'm a little nervous. I do this for the city, guys. I love my city. From day one, from when we had the plants to the festivals, on top of the Phoenix Center. I'm trying to bring that back. What I did the past couple years, what we did last year was remarkable. I did not know it was going to be that big, guys. I do apologize. I did not know the city was going to come like that. But I do appreciate it. McGinnis, I do appreciate it. Thank you. What I do is very, very hard. It's controlled by the ATF and also past you guys, which is the fire marshal. And there's 3 in charge. I don't know how they go, but the fire marshal, deputy chief maybe, or the chief? I don't know how it goes. There's like 3 of them. But like I said, I made those changes. I'm hoping that next year that I'll be able to expand and actually go into a different district because of how big we are. I hope you guys understand it. I'm a little nervous right now. I do apologize. Again, I just want to let you guys know that I love my city. I made those safety changes, and this year I'm ready to let another city know that the city of Pontiac is here, and it ain't going nowhere, and I'm the best in the city, and I will continue to be the best in my city because I love my city. Thank you.
Thank you. And if
thank
you're
you, sir.
still here at the end of the meeting, we can make copies. We just can't leave since we lose quorum. All right.
Ms. Billy Swazer.
Hello, my name is Billy Swazer, and I'm here speaking on behalf of my friend, Miss Urala Black of 1152 Ekman Street in Pontiac. And I provided a written statement to most of you so that you know what we're talking about. She has contacted me that there is a grant available to Pontiac low-income senior residents for lawn mowing and snow removal service through Oakland County. Mrs. Black is questioning whether the city of Pontiac has applied for this grant and if citizens can apply now to receive these services. Mrs. Black informs me that the grant must be filed for by May 31st, 2024. I'm sending a copy of my letter and the information to each of the council persons via the city clerk and to the deputy mayor. The person who told Mrs. Black about the service works on a committee that knows what every city, village, and township receives. Please contact Mrs. Black and advise her if she needs to file for this opportunity. And also I want to talk about the park at Joslyn. I think it was Aaron Perry Park or what? What was the name of it? Yeah, we're talking about a minute ago. JC. I believe the city sold that and erroneously stated when they described it, they had a different description. And when you do it by drawing the lines and measuring this, whatever, it didn't match up. And they got what the legal description was. What was on the document that they sold, that's what they got the line for. So look at the language, map it out, and whatever that place, that building is a building on the right-hand side, well, the west side, on the right-hand side going north on Joslyn, it's the building over there. They know what they bought. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swazer. Ms. Darlene Clark, and then Ms. Gloria Miller.
You want me to go now? Good afternoon, Council Administration, once again. In front of you, the clerk has passed out you a document dated from the decision for the GERS, decision to move forth and giving the retirees the $400. But there's questions to be asked, and there's numerous mistrusts there. And this is why this is being passed out to you. As you read this, you'll see that the case was dismissed without prejudice. To be dismissed without prejudice, it leads to say that, and this is the VIVA, which carries the insurance for the retirees. This leaves a case open. It does not close a case. The mayor has put forth to the council to say that he hoped to have this settled by Labor Day. Labor Day is way too long. This has been going on since 2012, And as you can see, dismiss without prejudice is his options. It leads to question with the retirees, are you finding a loophole to continue and moving forward and trying to delay the progress that you want the people to believe you're trying to do? If you can give the people their money in June, no later than July, that would help the people that has been suffering for so long. This should have never went on. This should have never took as long as it did. Though you think people, if they waited this long, that they can wait until Labor Day, that's not true. These people have hung on by a thread. Some of them have fell off the cliff because there's no hope for them. $400 may not seem a lot to you guys. It's nothing. $400, and understand out that $400, there's taxes being, for some, not for all, taxes are being taken out. And once again, $400 out of $58 million, insurance is being paid by Viva. Let the mayor explain to you and go into great details. It should not, and I quote with the computer system that Americans have today, it should not take to Labor Day. It should not take until August. It can happen tomorrow if they choose to, but having that case dismissed without prejudice leaves a case open.
Thank you. Ms. Gloria Miller.
First, I want to address you, Councilwoman Kathleen James. Last week, I was at home, but I had to look at the tape. Let me explain to you. The last council, we used to have a council that gave public comments 5 minutes. If I was sitting up there, I would give people 5 minutes. I'll take my 5 minutes, throw the punches at me, do whatever you got to do, because I believe this is the city residents meeting, even though it's called council. It's nowhere it's called the mayor's meeting. Even though the mayor gets 7 minutes, you guys have done a lot of unprecedented things in your tenure being up there. You never give the administration more time to you. It's called the council meeting. The mayor is here as a guest, or the deputy mayor. That's something I would never do, never lose my power. He would get 3 minutes. We would get 7 minutes. First of all, I think I have a problem. And as far as my last colleagues, they would tell you that we did vote to take it down to 3 minutes, but if I had got back up there, I would have put it back to 5. Because I believe it's about the people. Whether I like what they say or not, it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to kill me. That's their job, to come down and tell you what they need to know. And also the difference is our council president had sympathy when there was people in the audience. We allowed him, we suspend the rules and allow the people to speak if we had a long agenda. And that wasn't just with our council, with the 10th. I was here with the 9th. I was here with the 8th. I was here with the 7th council. And by no means, when we see people sitting out in the audience, we don't let them sit there. They want to go home. You got to keep thinking to yourself. And as far as the rules, let me get to the rules. You guys can make any rules you want. You're a different council. You got to stop blaming us for everything. You're a different council. So when another council comes up there, they can write their own rules. See, we were wrong. So if we would have them out there, and I don't believe we did, because we cared about the people. We didn't enjoy sitting down here all night. You know, we got through. 8:30 was out of here because it don't take that long. Plus, we had agenda review, and then we had a voting week. We give the people time to digest what we bring to them so they can call us on that phone, blast us, or tell us we're doing great. You guys just bring things to the floor, and you go at it. My time's going fast. I want to mention about those vehicles. Every time I pull up in that parking lot, I see all those white vehicles out there. It makes me sad. I had to drive around all holiday around the city of Pontiac looking at nothing but tall grass. The grass is so tall, it's just unbelievable. And I have to say, you know, we buying trucks, we buying vehicles. It's just like having a home. I'm getting the Cadillacs and all that, and I can't pay my bills. You got a structural deficit. This ARP money should have been really rectified a long time ago. I also just want to say this. Be careful how you treat people, because you'll never know when you'll need them. And that's what I live by. I was up there, but I never went by council or anything. I'm still just Gloria. And that's what you guys got to remember.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. That concludes public comment. President McGinnis.
Thank you, Pro Tem Carrington. We're at discussions. Number 7 on the agenda. Heads up and a reminder that the City Council's Pride and Beautification Annual Awards process, the nominations are now open, now through the end of June. You could do it in person, you could do it by mail, you could do it online. If you need any assistance or answers, please contact the Pontiac City Council offices or any individual City Council member. We want to celebrate our neighbors who go the extra mile and are making Pontiac beautiful and demonstrating their pride and love for their city. Any other discussions, any other discussion on that topic? Sorry, my microphone was off, but as a reminder, the Pride Beautification Awards now open through the end of June, and those signs will go out shortly thereafter, so an earlier time frame than previous years. Hearing no further discussion, we'll keep reminding the community about that opportunity, and thank you to the many residents who have already begun contacting us about it. We're at number 8. Is there anyone who would like to discuss the status update on the City of Pontiac labor study that the City Council previously called for in a resolution? Councilman Goodman had requested this discussion. He isn't able to be here this evening. The administration did provide us some written answers so far already, though. Any final discussion before we revisit this in the future? Hearing nothing, we are now at number 9 on the agenda. We, the City Council, are eager to see the critical departmental leadership positions filled to make sure for American Rescue Plan Act fund coordination, implementation, and management, the Finance Department, Grants and Philanthropy Department. We are seeking a status update from the mayor and his administration on any news he'd like to share. Mayor Grimley, you have the floor.
Yeah, as we've discussed in the past, we do have a new DPW director who is slated to start in just a couple weeks. We're looking forward to that. We also have identified a finance director that we're recommending be hired, and we're in final discussions with that candidate as well. So we hope to bring that candidate before council for approval in the next week or two. And then we have some additional candidates for grants director next week. We have interviewed a lot of people for that position, but GovHR recommended a couple of people that they thought we should interview as well. And so those interviews are scheduled for next Wednesday, June 5th, and we anticipate making a recommendation after completing those interviews next week. We also have posted the ARPA positions, the coordinator and manager positions for ARPA dollars. We have gotten a number of applications in for those positions, and so we're hoping to schedule interviews in the very near future.
Thank you. Further discussion? A final question, how everything moving smoothly for the new Department of Public Works director to come on board in the weeks to come?
Yes, as far as I know, the fact that you're asking that question makes me nervous, but yes, I spoke with the DPW director about a week and a half ago, and he's very eager to come on board and looking forward to working with us all.
Sounds great. Any further discussion on number 9? Councilwoman James.
Is Mr. England, what's his status in the department right now?
Yeah, so he's hired as a consultant, so he's not a city employee. We have a consulting contract with him per council's approval some time ago. And he really, his real specialty is facilities. And so he's helping us in terms of identify a potential new DPW facility, for example. He's helping identify possible solutions to the 50th District Court HVAC problem. He's helping with the sheriff's substation facility questions. So he's on board. He's helping primarily with facilities questions. We anticipate that he'll be staying on sometime beyond when the new DPW director starts to help with some of those issues and help with the transition. But he's not an employee. He's a consultant that's serving as an independent contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Final discussion on that topic? Hearing none, we're now at communications from the City Council. We just want to remind you about the new Oakland County Water Resources Commission Hardship Assistance Program. First come, first served funding. Want to salute Pontiac resident DeMar Bias with the Water Resources Commission as we identified in last week's resolution, acknowledging the leadership for the Water Resources Commission for offering that new resource. Again, that can help with past due water bills and plumbing repairs. So please, please, please make sure that Pontiac residents get to the front of that first come, first served line. Construction is still underway on eastbound M59 Huron Street between Cherokee and Johnson, now through June 10th. There is some lane closures and traffic lane shifts taking place, but traffic is still open on eastbound M59.
Entrance to Seminole Hills is not.
So right now, the entrance to Seminole Hills?
All side streets are closed.
Okay. So Councilman Nicholson is flagging that for Seminole Hills residents in District 2, accessing from here on is now closed through June 10th. Thank you for flagging that in particular. All right, number 12 on the agenda, Micah 6 and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources has a summer youth employment program hiring 16 to 19-year-olds for outdoor activities and open career opportunities in natural resources management, and that's available for Pontiac residents. Accent Pontiac, the Music Youth Enrichment Program has their free outdoor concert on May 30th at 5:30 p.m. held at the Oakland History Center, 405 Cesar Chavez, free admission. And the annual meeting of the Friends of the Pontiac Parks is scheduled for June 6th at 5:30 p.m. at the Pontiac Public Library's lower level. The guest speaker will be the new Chief Park Planner for the City of Detroit, Teresa McCarlton. There is a pizza dinner reception from 5:30 to 6 p.m. with the meeting starting immediately afterward, and the public is invited. Fun for the whole family. Mayor's office, any communications you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, thank you, President McGinnis. A couple of communications. Number one, we really appreciate everyone who came out earlier this month for the first of 3 town halls and listening sessions regarding the design of the future Youth Recreation Center. So thank you to all who attended the first session. We have the second of those listening sessions this Thursday. That's May 30th at 6 p.m. in downtown Pontiac at 46 North Saginaw. So we look forward to folks coming out for that event. And then we will have our third listening session in June, on June 20th, at a location to be determined. So stay tuned for the location of that. But mark your calendars, not just for this Thursday, May 30th at 6 p.m. at 46 North Saginaw in downtown Pontiac, but mark your calendars for June 20th at 6 p.m. for a location to be announced in the future. And then the second announcement is we're trying to make sure that we're doing more outreach to residents who live in historic homes or in historic districts, just about what the rules are in the city per city ordinance about maintaining those homes, renovating those homes, and also hopefully provide some helpful tips about resources where owners of a historic property can go to get some assistance with improving those homes in compliance with the city's historic ordinances. And we have one event coming up on June 10th. That's Monday, June 10th, from 6 to 8 p.m. That's going to be held at the Bowen Senior Center. And if you live in a historic property, if you live in a historic district, or if you're just curious about the subject, we welcome you to come out. Again, that's at the Bowen Senior Center at 52 Bagley Street on June 10th, Monday, at 6 p.m., 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you. We are now at closing comments. Mayor Grimel goes first. The mayor of the city of Pontiac is allotted up to 7 minutes, the same length of time for the previous city council. The city council before that did 15 minutes. The previous mayor abused that courtesy, so understandably, the previous council curtailed that to 7, which it still remains as to this day. Mayor Grimel, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, President McGinnis. So really just 3 quick points. One is I want to really be clear about why we're saying that we should have everything regarding Cypria and the reinstatement of the $400 monthly stipend wrapped up no later than Labor Day. And the biggest question mark is when we can get in before the judge, because that settlement has to be approved by the federal judge, and we, as a result, are really at the mercy of the court's docket and when it's scheduled by the judge. We anticipate having the revised settlement agreement drafted before that. In fact, the attorneys are already working on language. So the delay isn't really on the parties' part, meaning the city or Cypria's part. The reason why we're being so cautious about a projected final date is because of the question as to when the court will actually schedule us to get in front of the court and get that approved by the judge. Secondly, wanted to share some good news. I appreciate Ms. Wazer talking about the former program that OLSA had to help fund chores for seniors in the community. There's a lot of need for this. And the city did apply and was awarded a grant in the amount of $130,000 to fund that work. That's not a ton of money, given the need that's out there, but it's a start. And we haven't yet brought that before council because our grants department is ironing out the actual agreement language, but our acting grants director, Renee Hall, was watching the meeting and texted me that, yes, we actually did apply and have received an award, but we haven't yet gotten the money yet because we haven't yet entered into the agreement yet. That'll have to come before City Council, and she anticipates bringing that before City Council in the next few weeks. So some positive, good news there. And then lastly, I want to announce that we've had conversations with City Council, including Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford, and the administration is working on trying to draft some proposed amendments to the city ordinance that governs who qualifies to be a contractor and vendor with the city. The ordinance isn't really clear about who's disqualified from being a vendor or a contractor. It talks about not being in debt or in arrears or in default with the city. But we want to make clear that if somebody is behind on their taxes, for example, but they're in a payment plan and they're staying compliant with the terms of that payment plan, that they could still qualify to be a city contractor or vendor. We think this is really important because we want as many Pontiac-based businesses, especially those owned by Pontiac residents, to be able to contract with the city. And so we want to work with them. And it's not lost on us that the very nature of that ordinance really applies, if not solely, certainly disproportionately, to Pontiac-based businesses and Pontiac residents, because they're the ones who owe taxes to the city. And so we want to make sure that we're working with our Pontiac-based businesses and Pontiac residents so that if they're in a payment plan, they won't be disqualified. Obviously, a business, or especially a business owned by someone who lives in a different community, don't ever have to worry about being in default under their taxes because they never pay taxes to the city. So we don't want to disproportionately or unfairly punish Pontiac-based businesses and Pontiac residents. We want to make sure that we have enough flexibility in the ordinance to work with them if they're willing to make a good faith effort and be on a payment plan. And that's all I've got, Mr. President.
Thank you. In 3 minutes and 45 seconds, the mayor's comments are concluded. Deputy Clerk, anything from the clerk's office?
No, I have nothing.
Thank you for being here this evening, and congratulations again to Clerk Doyle on the graduation of his child from high school. I really want to thank the clerk's office for your work this week. There was just a lot of resolutions, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of paper that had to be collated, et cetera. So thank you very much to you and your colleagues that made that happen for this week's City Council meeting. Councilman Nicholson, your closing comments?
I just wanted to make a clarification. Tonight, we did go over a contract for DLZ to talk about GIS mapping and LiDAR. The system, yes, the former mayor spoke about a system being purchased. This is not a system that's being purchased. This is data that's being collected to make that system actually do what it can do. So a system alone with no information in it is not super helpful. Having all the information so that when they access that system, pull reports, or we ask for information and we can collect that data was what we're trying to get at. So yes, the system was purchased. The system is there. The training on the system is done. These people do know how to access and use the GIS system. However, they're accessing a system with very little information and data in it. So as we continue to build that, it makes the system relevant, and then we can do better, more efficient, faster work. Apart from that, I have no other updates.
The mayor forgot something?
May I?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry, but I did want to share that in just over 3 weeks this month, from May 1st through May 23rd, the Code Enforcement Division has issued 961 grass violations. So I know that we have a lot of properties whose grass is out of control, but Code Enforcement is working very hard, very diligently to stay on top of those who are not properly maintaining their property. So again, in just 23 days, 961 grass violations have been issued against property owners who are not properly maintaining their grass. That's just grass violations.
Thank you. Councilwoman James?
Yeah, it takes a lot of work. You know, on the way, I saw people cutting grass, and cutting grass is work for young people. It's laborious. So the next meeting for the District 4 Community Council will be June the 27th, 6 p.m. at the New Mount Moriah International Church. I also want to mention that the Friends of Pontiac Parks is also hiring youth this summer. So if you have nieces and nephews who would be interested in a part-time job, we are hiring 10 youth for the summer as junior park rangers. The time frame would be June 17th through August 16th. Those young people will be paid $15 an hour for 25 hours per week. So they're going to work 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So if you have any young people that might be interested, please have them give me a call at 248-425-4663. And I also want to invite everyone to attend our annual meeting. The Friends of Pontiac Parks is having our annual meeting at the Pontiac Public Library on June 6th. Our special guest, as Mr. McGinnis said, is the Chief Park Planner for the City of Detroit, Teresa McArton, and so we expect to have a really good time. So the public is invited. It is going to be kid-friendly, so if you want to bring the kids with you, no problem. But that, again, that will be on June 6th at the Pontiac Public Library, lower level. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Just a few announcements. Nation Outside has an event June the 1st at United Wholesale Mortgage. It's a community town hall around voting. Your vote, your voice. So if you have time, please come out, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Also this Saturday at Ruth Peterson, a STEM event with myself and with Pontiac Youth. It starts at 10 a.m. It's free for Pontiac youth. So please come out to that as well. I also like to thank the VFW for the Memorial Day celebration at Perry Mountain Park this past weekend, where we had a chance to remember those who gave and sacrificed their lives so we can have some of the freedoms we have in this country. So it was an honor to be able to speak at that particular event. And that's it for me. Good night.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership on and sponsoring that STEM activity in District 6. That's fantastic for our youth. So in addition to Pro Tem Carrington speaking at Perry Mount Park Cemetery in Pontiac on Memorial Day, I spoke on behalf of the city at the Oak Hill Cemetery Memorial Day ceremony. Again, there are many service members from the American Revolution all the way to the present day armed conflicts for our country that have made the ultimate sacrifice and are laid to rest in our city's municipal cemeteries and privately owned cemeteries in our historic community. I hope everyone had a safe and meaningful Memorial Day. I want to salute the Identify Your Dream Foundation for their annual Stomp Out the Violence gathering that took place in Rotary Park this year. And they made it through despite the threat of rain. It was a successful event, and I want to acknowledge that that was a district project that council members Rutherford and Goodman helped sponsor to make sure that event could be a success on behalf of the city of Pontiac. Thank you all for your time and investment in advancing the city of Pontiac. Many issues were dealt with tonight, but we have many, 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 many more to make further progress on, and we will see you next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. in these same chambers. That's the next council gathering. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved by Carrington.
Support.
It's been moved by Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman Nicholson, that we adjourn this evening's meeting. Hearing no discussion, roll call, Deputy Clerk.
Carrington,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries.